Oh, yeah. Welcome in, everybody. This is Cream of the Crop, a fantasy hockey podcast. I'm your host, Blake Creamer. Please follow me over on Twitter/X. That's where I bring the tweet heat. You know this. All right. And before we get into today's show, I got to talk to you about the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Draft Guide. It's now available and ready for your consumption. And you can find that beautiful document over on the A&G Patreon for the low price of $7.99. Oh my God, that's just such a good deal. All the money collected goes to Nate's calf implant removal surgery. So, they aren't working out as hoped. So it's definitely for a good cause. But seriously, inside that document, you got 32 team reviews, draft strategy, articles, 0G, sleepers, busts, all that good stuff. So if you want to support us, that's a great way to do it. Thank you for your service. All right. And but that's not why you're here. All right. You're here to watch an epic battle between two legends. Well, one legend and then old Dangle dude here. Yeah, buddy. So we're going to do what's called an ADP battle. And I've got my brother in fantasy, Chris from FantasyPuck, here to join me. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm great, man. I always look forward to doing content with your guys. You guys are super creative with your format. I'm excited for what's in front of us today. So get ready to get smoked, bud.
Oh, you know what? I am a little intimidated because if you're watching on YouTube, Chris is a little closer to his camera right now, and his head is like, he basically looks like a giant compared to me. I look like a little peon, and this guy's just, I don't know. Was that part of your strategy, Chris? Is that what you're doing here?
Hey, man, you got to assert your dominance early. That's where you got to go.
Okay, I am intimidated, and that's a fact. All right, so we'll see how it goes. I mean, I got crushed last year as usual, so I'm pretty sure that's going to be the same thing here. But anyways, let me talk to you about the ADP battle. All right, like I said, today's going to be the first of many of those. And ADP stands for average draft position for the layperson. All right. And these are battles where myself and an industry expert are going to look at two players with a similar ADP and decide who we are going to choose and why. This is what you call hot content. Chris, am I right?
Absolutely.
Oh,
this is as good as it gets.
This is
scorching. Prime time.
Oh, buddy. Yeah. I love that. All right. Without further ado, we got to get the biz. All right. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, how has things been going, man? I usually do a little more banter here, and I don't want to get some banter because I haven't seen you for a little while. How was your summer, and how are things going over there at FantasyPuck?
Summer was great. Things were super busy. I kind of alluded to earlier off camera there. We rolled out an entire brand new website for us, FantasyPuck.net, if you guys want to go check that out. We've really kind of, again, tried to make everything more premium, more interactive, better for our community. I'm looking forward to get some revenge in that FantasyPuck Creators League as well. That was a tough season that I had. A couple injuries kind of stewarded me off later. But summer was great. No complaints on my end. Always look forward to hockey season. Like I was saying earlier, I get giddy around the draft, man. It's like my brain starts thinking about it. Things have been just flowing over here at FantasyPuck on a day-to-day basis, between the YouTube, between the socials, and the website, and rolling out a brand new system for our FantasyPuck Patreon leagues, which we basically developed this entire tier system to work your way up to that elusive Division 1 if you guys are interested in playing any more competitive, more interactive fantasy hockey league that has people actually wanting to win and participate throughout the entire year, not just the first 2 months of your draft.
Yep.
So if you guys are interested in that, definitely go check out it at all the information. Everything that we do is available at FantasyPuck.net now. So if you guys have any interest in that, please be sure to check that out. But how's your summer been, man? I feel like you guys are just as nose to the grindstone as we've been.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, just on your FantasyPuck stuff, like I like that word premium because that's what I think of FantasyPuck. Yeah, you guys are putting out some premium content, like one of the best, if not the best, out on YouTube there, fantasy content. So I'm really loving what you guys are doing there. So congratulations to you.
Appreciate it.
And then this summer was great, man. I had some time off work, so that was really nice. Just actual holidays, so I got to spend a lot of time with my kids, and also
love that.
Yeah, a lot of time in my basement with no sunlight, staring at a screen, all right, analyzing, God knows what. I don't know, zone entries with chances. Oh.
I would love to see just an ongoing tally of time spent looking at hockey stats for me over the course of the summer. It's probably something disgusting. Like, yeah, it's just,
you know what? I don't even know if we want to see that. Like, that's I'm just cutting that part out and compartmentalizing it in some place here that I'll address, later on with my therapist. Okay, buddy, we got to get the biz. All right, we got some stuff here. We got to get in here. This is we're getting into an epic battle here. Like I said, I'm a little bit frightened, but that's fine. In terms of, we're talking an ADP battle. I looked at Yahoo for these ADPs, and then just for reference, I think the format that we're looking at here, Chris, is just a points league with some banger weighting. Just your regular points league with a little bit of banger weighting there, just to kind of cover all the bases. So not a catch.
Is there plus minus?
Oh, you know what? No, because there never should be. Damn it! All right.
Hey, we're aligned on that. That is the most fraudulent stat.
Oh, it's terrible. The only time it matters is when you're at an extreme, like minus 55 or something.
Yeah.
You're like, you might want to work on your defensive game, but that's really all you can say. It's like, don't get
normally if I'm in a plus minus league for whatever reason and it's outside of my control, I just punt the entire category. Like I completely ignore it. I just draft how I normally would.
You punt it. Any league with plus minus is like, let's just introduce a bunch of variance into our league and take some skill out of it. And that goes against what we do, doesn't it?
All right, here's my last question about the format. What is the weighting like? Like, is it the categories where it's like everything's more or less similar? Is it points where it's like goals are weighted more? Because I know Yahoo standard scoring is typically more heavily weighted in terms of goals. Yeah,
good question. We'll do goals more than assists. So something like three for a goal, 2 for an assist, something like that, or that ratio. And then we'll do, hits will be 0.5, blocks will be 1, something like that, right? And then shots are 0.5 as well. So yeah, we got a little bit of banger weighting in there. Power play points as well. We'll throw those in there, or special team points in general. I probably should have laid that out beforehand, but you know what? We'll edit it in post, right, Chris? You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah. All right. You ready to do battle, my man?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, buddy. We're in our fantasy drafts. We're getting the biz. It feels good. We got a cold pop. We're drinking it. We got pick 3. We're locked and loaded with pick 3. We got McDavid went off the board. McKinnon went number 2. And now we're staring down Auston Matthews, Big Poppy, or Nikita Kucherov. And just as an aside, Yahoo currently has Kucherov over Matthews in ADP. Just what they've got right now, like just he's ahead of him at 3 and Matthews at 4. So, Chris, who are you taking there and how come?
Well, I think we're pretty aligned here on the fantasy puck end at who should be the consensus 3, and that is Auston Matthews. And a lot of people don't like to hear that because, especially the season that Kucherov's coming off of, 144 points, 100 assists, 44 goals, an absolute like machine on the power play as well. Had over 300 shots for the first time, which is really with Kuch, like my biggest caveat and why I was kind of off him the year before was he had a little bit of injury concern, and then just the fact that he wasn't really an elite volume shooter, but last season he hit over that 300 shot mark. But with Auston, it's absolutely ridiculous to say that he scored 69 goals last season.
Yeah.
And I think that, those assist totals are going to come up this year. I think that the power play is going to be better for the Leafs overall with the new coach. His shot volume is always one of the best in the National Hockey League. And then you add his block totals and his hit totals on top of that as well. Now that we're, got some bangers weighed into it, I feel more confident having a guy that can put up 70, maybe even more goals in a season than a guy that just absolutely he's going to be 31, 32 Kuch. And not to say that he's a bad player by any means. I think he's a guaranteed top 5 pick. I'd probably take him in some circumstances, depending on the league format before Draisaitl. But I think Matthews, just with the clear goal scoring upside, the shot volume, and then he had like 99 blocks last year, I believe, like close to 100 blocks. And then his hit totals were pretty decent as well too, because of that bangers weight. Like he just touches every category. And I think that's where he kind of sets himself apart than Kucherov, is the fact that Kuch doesn't really do too much in those other peripheral categories.
Yep, I agree with all that. I mean, my pick would be Matthews as well. I'm going to make an argument here for Kucherov just because I do think that these are comparable players, right? But they've got a different skill set, right? And with Kucherov, you're looking at power play points, right? That is the major win there for Kucherov. Like Matthews had 29 power play points last year. Kucherov had 53. Yep. Good God, what is this man doing on the power play? I mean, he's elite at that. He just led the league in points. And we're taking him at 4. Like we're in consensus on that, right? And I think that's the interesting piece about fantasy to me is you don't just go look at the box scores or look at the stat leaders at the end of the day. Like I think Matthews is bringing so much more to the table here. Like you said, his block and his hit numbers amazing. I do think that he has 70 goals in him. I don't know if we'll see it again this year. Like I think there's a small amount of variance there now that we've got a new coach in Toronto. And
Sure.
I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit on that, because Nate and I've talked about sort of our thoughts on Craig Berube in Toronto. What do you think that there's going to be any kind of what kind of changes do you think we can expect with Berube there? Is he going to mess with kind of that top six and maybe that deployment that they're getting, because these guys are eating minutes?
Yeah, it's really the biggest caveat of having Sheldon Keefe there was the fact that he deployed the core four essentially at such a high rate in terms of their time on ice. And I think that's what allowed guys like William Nylander to continue to be successful on a year-to-year basis. But I think two things are really going to happen. I think they're going to majorly overhaul the power play.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly if that's personnel changes. I don't know if that's, doing a 1A, 1B. I don't know if it's just as simple as, changing the format and because everybody knows the puck is eventually going to get to Auston, right? I think that is the big thing that they're going to focus on. And then I'm interested to see what Berube does in terms of his lineup deployment and his time on ice allocation. I wouldn't be too concerned. I would find it very hard to believe that you see Auston Matthews' average time on ice go down anywhere below 20 minutes. He's been around on just over that 20-minute mark consistently over the past 3 seasons, close to the 21 average time on ice mark last year at 20:58.
Yep.
I would find it very hard to believe that those are going to dip below 20. So in terms of personnel changes and lineup changes, I wouldn't be concerned at all with Matthews. I think there's probably going to be a little bit more variance in terms of the middle six, maybe even the bottom six. But that top line, he is your big dog. He scores 70 goals. You have to play that guy,
Yep. Yeah, I think that makes total sense. To me, it's if he's going to another team where you don't have this level of player there, or this level of players, they got Marner, they got Willie Nylander, even John Tavares, these are guys that can really pop off for fantasy. So it's one of those things, like you said earlier, about something else. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think this part is probably pretty secure. But yeah, I'm interested to see about that power play, because Matthews hasn't crested 30 points on the power play yet. And that's actually a little bit of a surprise to me, just based on the personnel they have there. So I'm interested to see if Berube can do something there. But, one more thing too, obviously we like the metrics here at Apples and Genos, just again, the final feather in Matthews' cap, on the season, he was 8th overall in shots on goal per 60. So big time shot generator, 4th overall in individual scoring chances for. So that's elite, right? Where Kucherov actually, he was 42nd overall in shots on goal per 60, which is nice. That's higher than he normally does, but he was 108th overall in individual scoring chances for per 60, Kuch, right? So he's doing so much damage on the power play. And I also think that in Toronto, they have more players to do stuff, right? Matthews isn't required to do everything, where in Tampa, if Kuch isn't having these elite seasons, that team is going to fall off a cliff. If they're one Kucherov injury away from maybe not making the playoffs, that may be a spicy take, but they rely on him for everything. So,
No, I don't think you're far off on that take. He's definitely the biggest driver of offense. He's just so good that he does it every single year. I think the injury concerns with Kucher behind him, don't get me wrong, I love this guy as a player. Yeah. I was off him last year because of the injury concerns. He put that to bed this year after playing 81 games, I think it was, 82. He was over 80 games. So, I'm not concerned at all with his injury concerns now. I'm more interested to see what the Tampa power play is going to look like, because they no longer have Stamkos on that left half wall to where he can go cross ice to him for a one-timer, or Hedman can get him that puck. And so, I don't know what that looks like with Jake Guentzel. I'm curious what they're going to do. I can't see Guentzel playing in that same spot simply because you're not going to be able to get that cross ice one-timer. Is it going to be a lot more of Hedman going down to Kucherov for that either one-timer or the fake to point, which he loves to do on a regular basis? Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm curious as to what adjustments they're going to have to make with losing that kind of dynamic right-handed shot on the power play.
Yep, absolutely. A lot of lefties on that power play now. So we'll see what happens. It's not just to insert Jake Guentzel into Stamkos' spot, and we're looking at the same thing, but when you got a player like Kucherov running your power play, I really feel like they'll make it work. It is going to look different, though. Yeah. But anyways, there you go. We're both taking Matthews. I think that's the right thing to do. Book it. All right, we're moving on. Okay, now we are heading over to round 3. All right, we're feeling good about our pick. We got Matthews first there, which is pretty dang nice. All right, and now we're at pick. We'll say we're at pick 30 here, and we're staring down Jason Robertson or Kucherov's buddy, Braden Point. All right. And we're looking to get some offense here. Who are you taking out of those two players there, Chris?
This was a little bit at it's not that the first question was like a clear cut consensus Matthews over Kucherov. This one is a little bit different because I look at it as it's completely dependent on what you think Jason Robertson is as a player. And yes, he had that one season where he's been over 100 points, like consistently scores 40 goals. But like last year, we saw him just be around a point a game. Not his shot volume really dropped off. Mm-hmm. And you look at a guy like Braden Point, who, yes, like his shot volume is never elite to begin with. He's usually around like that 240, 235, somewhere in between there. But he's just so incredibly consistent on a year-to-year basis in terms of his production. His goal scoring totals always seems to be over 40 goals. He's hit that 50 mark before. He's always around like over 90 points. He's done it consistently for 2 seasons in a row. I think there's a lot more questions when it comes to Jason Robertson. Number one, what kind of player is he? Number two, he's lost Joe Pavelski from his line. What does that look like? Number three, if Wyatt Johnston comes into the fold and is then, taking more shot volume from J-Rob and taking more goal opportunities from J-Rob, because I truly believe like Wyatt Johnston's going to be an elite player in this league, and he's shown that over the course of his career so far in the National Hockey League. And in the playoffs, he was one of the best goal scorers, period. And so for me, it's like, okay, like you look at Braden Point, he's still the number 2 target on that team. He's still playing with Kucherov in basically every situation. He still is going to get the same looks. You could even argue he's going to get more looks this year because of Jake Gensel. Whether that's him feeding Gensel or him getting the puck, vice versa, depending on what their lineup is. I just think Braden Point is so safe of a player. I think he goes overlooked a lot of the time, number one, because he lacks those peripheral stats. Jason Robertson is definitely better in those areas. I wouldn't say he's great by any means. He's still around like that 50-ish hit mark. But for me, I think the consistency and I think the power play totals, and I would just much rather go with a safer pick here than get a guaranteed 90 points, get a guaranteed 40-plus goal scorer, then have Jason Robertson turn around and be the same 80-point player that he was last year, lose out on his shot volume and those goal totals.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting piece, and that's why I try and find 2 players that not only are similar in ADP, but are going to make you think, right? And to me, I like what you said on Braden Point there. This is a player that obviously I think his floor is pretty damn solid, and I absolutely agree with you that he's a safer player. That said, I'm taking J-Rob all day at this spot.
Interesting.
To me, yeah, like for at this point, to me, I'm taking J-Rob for the upside because I think his floor is solid too. You said like 80 points. Like I really believe that what we saw last year was the floor. We saw J-Rob's floor. We had players like Wyatt Johnston, like Matt Duchene, like Tyler Seguin, even Mason Marchment. Like this second line tier of players was getting prioritized a little bit. And even J-Rob's power play time on ice went under 3 minutes, which was terrible, right? Like that was huge. That was a big part of his big season in 2022-23. He had 41 power play points. Last year, 28, which is still elite. But it was just a different looking power play. And I think that what we saw out of J-Rob last year, just being deprioritized a little bit, was more due to like Wyatt Johnston kind of coming up and like those things that I mentioned. So that said, I think that Pavelski retiring is going to equal a net positive for J-Rob. I really do believe. Yeah, I believe that Pavelski kind of, and this is no slag on Pavelski. The guy's a legend. He's incredible, but he couldn't skate last year. His skating fell off a cliff. I think he dragged the line down a little bit.
Okay.
And I think to the point where they did start prioritizing other lines, like Pavelski was just slow. He doesn't have much to his game, right? He's obviously a savvy veteran, knows what to do, especially on the power play. But his time on ice went down last year. It was just time for him to go. And I think whoever they put up on this top line, I think it's going to be Hintz, Robertson, and then I'm not 100% that it is going to be Wyatt Johnston because he did have some chemistry with Jamie Benn and Logan Stankoven and put some stank on it. I have to say that every time I talk about that man's name. That's an epic name, by the way. Shout out to
Great
Logan
name.
Stankoven. Yep. But yeah, I think it's going to be Tyler Seguin moving up to the top line there, and I think that's going to equal a net positive for that group. I think he's going to fit what J-Rob and Hintz do a lot better than last year's Pavelski did, right? So that's my thought there. And I think we've seen the ceiling for J-Rob as well. I don't think Braden Point's going to crest 100 points in his career. I just don't. But J-Rob, he got 109 just 2 years ago, right? So I think we've seen the test case. Like, we know that it's in there, and like, this is a player that showed out in the metrics that we like as well. Not last year, but he, the year before that, he was, in the upper echelon of the league in shot and chance generation. I just think it's going to be a big year for Dallas, like getting Pavelski out of there. Even Jamie Benn, like another year older. I think they're going to deprioritize these older players. Even Matt Duchene, like they only signed him to a 1-year contract. I think they're going to go back to the well with the big line in Dallas, and I'm taking J-Rob. I've got him for 94 points. I think I projected him for 94. I just think that the ceiling is higher, and I'm happy to take that swing. Actually, one last thing, too, now that I'm thinking of it. I think that Braden Point is actually valued where he should be in Yahoo. I think J-Rob is a second-round pick.
From an ADP perspective, I like it a lot. I like J-Rob in that spot a lot better than I would take Point in the second round. Point, like you said, is kind of justified in that ADP range. I think where I'm kind of against the grain on your perspective is, how they deploy J-Rob. I think Wyatt Johnson is just an absolute threat to J-Rob, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of his shot totals, in terms of his goal scoring as well. And so my argument is like, okay, if he's that talented of a scorer, he shot 12% last year, which is only 2% below his career average, and he ended with 30 goals. Like, this was not the same Jason Robertson that we saw the year before. This was not the same Jason Robertson we saw the year before that, when he put up 40 both years and had, the shot volume just completely evaporated. And to me, like, there's some underlying concerns there for me. Whether that was Pavelski, I don't know if putting 33-year-old Tyler Seguin is really going to change much. Again, not to beat up on your point
you
there.
You son of a gun!
But I would, in this situation, if they're the same ADP, I'm picking Point over J-Rob.
I like it. One last thing on Point, I will say, and maybe just get your thoughts on this too, is like, Braden Point is a guy that lives off of massive efficiency, right? 2 years straight with over 20% shooting percentage. So that is something to, and I'm not off Braden Point. I'm definitely not saying that. This is a player, again, like, even if his efficiency goes down a little bit, we're still looking at 85 points for Braden Point. Like, this player is good to go. But yeah, that does give me a little bit of pause. Like, 51 goals 2 years ago, 46 last year. I could see that continuing to drop, especially because Tampa they're getting worse. You know what I mean? Like, their environment last year, this isn't the wagon team that it was a long time ago. It's because they have Point, they have Kucherov, and bringing Gensel in here, major win. Just, that's a great hockey trade, a great trade for fantasy. Plus, they still have Hedman there, but I don't know. The environment's a little bit worse. You look at what Vasilevsky was able to do last year, or not able to do, which is stop the puck, which is so strange for a guy that's just so epic in net, So I'm not that high on Tampa as a team in general, and I feel like the wheels maybe not going to fall off, but like there's some under the hood. Like, this team needs a tune-up.
Yeah, like, they're definitely not the prime Tampa that we're used to seeing. I think the last thing I'll say about Point is where you look at it as, potentially like, he's an efficient shooter. There's efficient shooters that exist in the National Hockey League. First player that comes to mind, Leon Draisaitl. I don't think either of us are arguing the fact that guy could score at a 20% rate for the rest of his career. I just think Braden Point's that kind of player. And now that Tampa is like less like deep than initially, I think that honestly helps Point's case even more, that he's a primary target in this offense. Cooch is going to be playing with him more or less for the entire duration every time they touch the ice. And so it's like, I look at the same situation last year, like, is there, outside of them bringing Jake Gensel instead of Stamkos, like, let's call that a wash for what it is, does their offensive distribution change that much differently than last season? I don't think so. Do I think Cooch can put up 140 points? Sure. Do I think he'll do it again? I don't know, right? It's possible we see 120 points out of him. It's possible, like you said, we see 85 points out of Braden Point. In this case, I would just rather the consistency, because I know that Point is a number one target in the offense. Not to say that J-Rob isn't, but I think there is more opportunity for other lines to, like you say, produce at a higher rate. And the other thing with J-Rob is, like, he's never been close to 20 minutes average time on ice.
Yeah,
whether that's the way that he's deployed, whether that's the way that, like, just Dallas runs their offense, I think there's just more threats. There's more opportunity there for other Dallas players. And it could take away from him a little bit. I'm not saying that's going to happen. Don't get me wrong. I love J-Rob. I think he has I agree with you. He has a higher ceiling than Point. It's just in this circumstance, I'm taking Point.
No, yeah, I got it. You hate Jason Robertson. No, I got that. Yeah, we'll clip that. No,
just clip that, radio me, put it on a TikTok.
We're going to at you. All right. Jason Robertson's a big fan of the show, and you just insulted him, Chris. All right. So that's, oh God. All right. That's fine. Really good stuff there, buddy. All right. We're moving on. Let's go to round 7 now. And we're looking at the D. Giggity. We got to get some D, that vitamin D. All right. We're going outside. I don't know where I'm going with that. Okay. You know what? Some of the top dogs are gone. We're looking at kind of some secondary options here. And your pick 85, you're staring down Mo Seider. We're going to the old mill. We're getting some Seider or Mackenzie Weegar. So we got 2 beefers here. We're looking to shore up that in our team here. Who are you taking of those 2 players?
This is another tough one. I think there's more to be said in this conversation than maybe even the J-Rob point one. It's very dependent on whether or not you think Moritz Seider is going to be the power play 1 defenseman in Detroit.
Yep.
I think given what happened last year where they kind of moved Weegar around, you saw Rasmus Andersson on that top power play unit, I think we're going to see something similar. I don't know if Weegar is clear-cut the number 1 power play D. He hasn't been over his course in Calgary. Peripherals-wise, they're very similar. I give the edge to Seider just because of the block totals and the hit totals are always around that 200 range. I think Weegar kind of fluctuates a little bit more. Weegar, on the other hand, shoots a lot more than Seider does on a consistent basis. Do I think Weegar is putting up 20 goals next year? Absolutely not. But you look at where Moritz Seider is, and he's consistently been this 40-point defenseman. And the reason that we've always been so high on him is because when he hits that power play 1 consistently, his point totals are going to go up. And so I know they brought in Erik Gustafsson. I know he ran some of the power play in New York last year when, Adam Fox went down for a little bit. In my opinion, I think it's a much higher probability that Moritz Seider ends up being the power play 1 defenseman than Mackenzie Weegar ends up being the power play 1 defenseman in Calgary. So I'm going to take Moritz Seider. The other thing I really like about Seider is the age. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement there. Weegar's kind of at the end of his career. Obviously still a very good player in terms of his peripherals, but I think Seider has more upside, and I think that Detroit's power play historically has not been good, and I think that actually changes for the first time this year, where you get, hopefully, a fully healthy Patrick Kane for more than, 40 games, 50 games, whatever it was. Yep. And then Seider ends up establishing himself as a legit power play 1 defenseman. He hits around that 50-plus point mark. He sees his shot totals come up. I'm just worried about the way that they're going to deploy him at 5-on-5. And honestly, I think that's what has kind of stunted his growth and development, is because he gets such tough minutes and that they deploy him with these really underwhelming D partners, that it kind of almost forces him to just be this huge 5-on-5 guy, peripheral wise. I just think that he's going to take a step this year. I'm always a big fan of him. I think there's more upside with him. I think there's more opportunity with him going forward. So I'm going to take Moritz Seider.
Yeah, I love that take. I think that's really good. To be honest, that goes against a little bit of what Nate and I have been talking about with Mo Seider this year. But it's just a compelling take, because this is an exciting player. I mean, how can we not like Mo Seider for what he brings to the fantasy table? For me personally, though, I really don't think that offensive ceiling is there, even if he does get power play 1. And that's where I would choose Weegar in this situation. And I'll give you my reasons why. The main one being Weegar doesn't really need power play 1 to be relevant, right? And sure, Seider doesn't either. But if both of them don't get power play 1, Weegar to me is going to have the better fantasy season. And we saw that last year, and you mentioned as well, the shot totals. That was insane. Amongst defensemen last year, he was 15th overall in shots to go over 60. Seider was 107th, right? That's pretty significant. Weegar as well, 45th overall in individual scoring chances for over 60, which is really good for defensemen. And Seider was 147. So, and that goes to your point. They're giving Seider the worst possible minutes, the hardest minutes in the league, basically. This guy's out there just beefing up against the league's best players on a nightly basis, right? So I think in this case, I would choose Weegar. Yeah, 20 goal Weegar, that's never going to happen again. This guy caught lightning in a bottle. That's not real. Maybe double digits, right? I've got Weegar projected for double-digit goals this year. I mean, 12 goals and 37 assists is what I have him for, 49 points. Mo Seider, I'm just looking at my projections live here. This is good podcasting, folks. Yeah, 41 points for Mo Seider. So, and that's with minimal power play stuff, kind of similar to what they've been able to do. Weegar had 15 power play points last year with a 38% power play share. I could see that happening again, maybe a little bit less. and that's where I get my 49. But yeah, Seider, even if he does get power play, I just don't see the offensive ceiling there. But these guys are legends in category leagues, like especially Seider, like 200 hits, 200 blocks. What the hell? What the hell got into this man? And he's got a beautiful head of hair. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely see your point. And this is something that when I initially looked at both players, I was like, Weegar's got a really good floor to him as well. It's not just the fact that, he got to share that power play time last year and that he really capitalized.
Yep.
I think that goal scoring is a complete myth. I think, he's never been double digits in his career. And then all of a sudden hits 20. So if you count, like, let's say you take, like, I don't know. Let's say we give him the benefit of the doubt. He scores 10 goals next year. That's 10 points off of his point total. He's more or less the same floor as what Seider is. It comes regardless of the power play time. I think more or less they're similar across the board last season in terms of their power play totals. My argument is that if Seider does stay on that power play one, I think it will be more of a benefit to him offensively than it would be if Weegar is the power play one defenseman in Calgary. Just simply because of like teammate quality as well.
Yeah.
Like there's so many more offensive threats on Detroit, in my opinion, than there is going to next season with Calgary. It's also very possible that Calgary is just completely hemmed in their own end a lot of the time.
They're going to be bad. Yeah.
Yeah. So not to say that Detroit's going to be like a world eater by any means, but I think there's more, again, upside with Seider due to his age, due to the fact that like he could very well just have developed a more offensive skill set in the offseason that we have no clue about. And Detroit's like, yeah, look, this guy's a stud. Even though we went and got Erik Gustafsson, we just like him because he's a puck-moving defenseman. They've done that before. We've seen that before out of them. So I think there's more upside. I think, again, the Weegar point totals are a bit of a myth. He more or less hovers around the same spot from a point perspective, whether it's like mid-30s to mid-40s. It's more or less what Seider does on a game-to-game basis. They're both very durable as well. Like Seider hasn't missed an NHL game yet this season. Knock on wood. I'm knocking on everything right now.
You got him in your dynasty leagues.
I might be able to grab him this year. So if that comes to fruition, I don't want any bad juju. Yeah, I think they're very similar. I just think there's more opportunity for Seider, and there's more of a chance that he could see an increase in his point total than there is with Weegar.
I like your style. All right, that's how we get to business here. All right. Now we got to get into round 9. All right. Now we're looking at some secondary scoring for our team. We've already got a wagon. Our teams are going insane. We're going to smash our opponents and hurt their feelings as usual. Now we're looking at pick 108, and we're staring down Alexis Lafreniere or Lucas Raymond, most Seider's teammate, potentially on the power play. Maybe, according to Chris from FantasyPuck. I don't know. So what are you doing there at pick 108? You going Lafreniere or you going Raymond?
It's crazy that, like, both the Detroit guys are still technically RFAs. So if I'm drafting tomorrow, I might just fade both of them altogether.
Yeah, really.
Because they don't have a contract.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't be too worried about it. I think they get it done. I think as stubborn as Stevie Y is, those are two key players on his team. And I think he pretends that that team doesn't need to make the playoffs, but bringing guys like Patrick Kane, I think there's more of a priority on them making the playoffs. Yeah. But anyways, to your point here, this is really a conversation of ceiling versus floor, in my opinion. I think, and this is funny because I just saw your interaction on Twitter about this. As good as the season Alexis Lafreniere had last year, he didn't hit the same point total even close to what Lucas Raymond did.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But the biggest thing with Laf is obviously the fact that those peripherals are so good. Like, last season, he had 141 hits. The season before that, he was over 100 hits again. The two previous seasons prior to last year, he was over 100 hits. Last season, he really kind of slowed up. He actually halved the season before, where he finished with 73 last year. But we saw his point totals increase, 28 goals, finished with 57 points. But the biggest deterrent, I still think, for Laf is that he won't get power play one time. And this is what the interaction on Twitter is that I'm referencing. Is that as efficient as he was from a 5-on-5 perspective, in order for him to truly hit those 70-plus point totals, I think he needs to be on the Rangers' top power play. Is there an opportunity for him to do that? Well, you've got Fox, you've got Zibanejad, you've got Panarin, you've got Kreider. That's 4 guys right there. Who's your 5th guy going to be? Right? Like, is it Riley Smith? They just brought him in. I think he adds a pretty unique element to that team. It's likely Vincent Trocheck again. he was an absolute stud on that power play. So then you're stuck with Lath being on the second power play unit again. Where I know for a fact, if there is a contract signed with Lucas Raymond, he's going to be on their top power play. And he's going to play alongside Dylan Larkin, likely. And he's likely going to play alongside Alex DeBrincat. I think there's more upside with Raymond. I won't lie to you. From a peripheral standpoint, I completely get Lath's argument because the shot total is significantly higher. He's well over 200 shots. Raymond likes to sit in that like 170, 180 mark. I do think there's a little bit of inflation in Raymond's goal totals as well because he shot 19% last year, where the 2 previous seasons he was around that 12% mark. So I think he's around that 25 goal total. And then if you're talking like 6 goals, then he's in that 65 point range, which is more or less what Lath has. But I think in this case, I would much rather take the guy that I know is going to be line 1, power play 1, even though like the peripherals aren't necessarily up to standard as what Lath has. I think there's more upside here for Raymond going forward.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything he said, and I would choose Raymond as well. To me, it just exactly like, let's say they have the same sort of point totals. Like I've got Raymond projected for 69 points, nice. Laugh, I've got 63 points. That's my projection there. But so we're in the wheelhouse there. But yeah, the big difference is Raymond has a chance. His ceiling could be a lot higher based on his opportunity, whereas Lath is just not going to get that opportunity no matter how good he is. Like in a bubble, I'm taking Lafreniere 10 times out of 10 because I think he's a better player. I think he's a better fantasy asset. He's doing all the right things, but he's just not going to get the opportunity. And I think Trocheck is a lock on that power play. I don't think there's any question. So it's going to be, you know,
you would need an injury to happen in order for him to really step in and establish himself there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And if an injury does happen, then now we're looking at Laugh as, you know, potentially a 65, 70 point player, right? I could see that. Yeah. And I've seen people project him that way, but I'm just not doing that, right? In a Bangers Cats league, I'm taking Lafreniere, no question, I'm sure you would as well, just with the riffs. But he's a great player, though. He's a really interesting player. Obviously found major chemistry with Panarin and Trocheck on that, which was the second line last year.
That line was sick. Yeah, that line was very, very good. And I was looking into Zib's numbers, and I'm wondering now that, you know, with this is a little bit off topic, but with how much Panarin is shooting and how much he's making an effort to try and score, does that take away from Zib a little bit? But like you said, like I definitely think Trocheck's a lock. It's difficult to pull a guy like Chris Kreider off that power play as well too, because like 35 goals consistently, he's a net front presence. He's one of the better tippers in the National Hockey League. Like he just does his role so well. And then Trocheck fit like a glove onto that top power play unit. It's so hard to just take one of those guys off and put Laugh on, where I know that Raymond's going to get on first power play.
Yep, absolutely. And hopefully they get these RFAs signed. This is craziness. Raymond and Seider, like that's your team there, Mr. Yzerman. You might want to get those guys locked down for long term. All right. They're good players. But anyways, yeah, we're both taking Raymond and we're taking it to the bank. We feel good about this. All right. Now we got to get a goalie, buddy. I heard you talking about this recently. Zero G. You guys are going 0G over at FantasyPuck, and I'm here for it, buddy. So you know what? We faded goalies. We're in round 11. We don't care. We're like, yeah, that's fine. Give me what's left there in round 11, and we've still got a couple studs here. All right, we're at pick 132. We're like, yeah, let's lock down our first goalie here. And you're looking at Connor Ingram of Utah or Philip Gustafson in Minnesota. Who are you taking there?
Oh God. Are there other options?
Oh, that's it. Every other goalie exhausted.
That's tough. I think, you know, comparing these two, Ingram obviously had a really good year last year. I think Utah is going to be sneaky good. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm fully confident that Ingram's going to be the number one guy. I think that, you know, Vejmelka is going to have a bit of a bounce back. Even if they split, like that kind of takes away from Ingram. Like, I would much rather go Gustafson. I think the team is better overall. I think he has more of an opportunity to establish himself as the number one goalie, just with Fleury behind him. I know Jesper Wallstedt is breathing down everybody's neck there, and I know that Gus had a tough season last year. But overall, I think I would much rather take the guy out of Minnesota that is likely going to push for a playoff spot. At least I have more confidence in them, as good as I think Utah is going to be. You know, it's still possible that Gus is going to get 20 wins. He's going to start 45, 40 times. He had a 931 last year.
Yeah,
and so if we're going off the trade of the way his stats have been in his career, where he's gone 930 to 890 to 930 to 890, next year's got to be a 930 season then, right?
The law of averages says yes.
No, I think you're stuck between a rock and a hard place with these two picks. I think Gus has a better opportunity to be that number one goalie. I think Vejmelka is more of a threat to Ingram than Fleury is to Gustafsson. But again, there's a little bit of concern there with the way that last season went and with Jesper Wallstedt coming into the fold. If it does turn out that Gustafsson has a bad season, he might actually end up as the third string goalie if that's the case. But I feel a little bit safer with Gus than I would with Connor Ingram.
Yeah, this is an interesting one for sure. And I do think they're kind of in the same category of tendies, right? I mean, at this position as well, a lot of people, this will be like their second or maybe third goalies at the pick. And if you're not going 0G, but you should be going 0G. Am I right, Chris? Come on, help me out.
There's definitely.
Oh my God! No.
I know you guys love it. This is like arguing against a religion for you guys right now. So there's definitely benefits to it. I know Mike loves to punt goalies as well. Yeah. I think it's a good strategy at times. Typically, whenever I look to get a goalie, it's pure value based. Yep. Like I think Jacob Markstrom's a good example this year. Like you can get that guy in like the mid round, and he could end up being a top 5 goalie just because of how good New Jersey could be. So as much as I am an advocate for the 0G strategy, I think there is times, depending on your league scoring, especially where you need a half-decent goaltender. But you guys have been successful with it, and we've definitely seen success on our end with it. So it's just, this is a really tough spot to pick between these two guys. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me personally, I think I'd lean Ingram, but I agree with everything you said. I think Minnesota's the better team. And honestly, I think they have the better defensive environment. Like, look, just digging in a little bit there, their expected goals against at 5-on-5 last year, they were 6th best in the league, but they actually ended up 15th best in goals against. Right. So obviously their goaltending situation was terrible. Gus had a terrible year. They couldn't keep the puck out of the net last year in Minnesota. It was really rough. Whereas Ingram, really outplayed his environment. I think he did establish himself as the 1A there. I know Karel Vejmelka, vegetable lasagna. I know he's going to be back. He's going to bounce back a little bit, but I do think that Ingram has bought himself a few more starts, right? He had 50 starts last year, or 50 games played. I think we see that again. Right. And I am sneaky high on this Utah team. They've got some really nice pieces, and we're sort of projecting some of the young players to take a minor step, right? Like guys like Logan Cooley, right? Dylan Genther. These are players that I think are like, if that second line gets cooking, those two guys in particular, sheesh. And then you picked up Mikhail Sergachev on the back end, which I really do think is going to help. It has to help. It's not going to hinder. It's going to help. You got a guy like Sergachev, and they're a beefer, a great offensive defenseman in his own right. With tons of blocks in front of Ingram. So I'm going to take Ingram there. But with Gus, I think that he should be the number one there. But you're right. Like they've got Fleury, who they signed again, and I was surprised on that. I thought it was going to be Gus and Wallstedt, kind of bring him up. It's weirdly risky, Gus. Like I think he's a better goalie, and he has probably a higher ceiling as well, but I'm not sure about the timeshare situation there. So that's probably why I would choose Ingram there. I'm interested in both goalies for 0G, so don't get me wrong there, but I'm probably leaning Ingram first. Yeah, especially in that round, just to kind of put a bow on it. In a round 11, pick 132. As good as Ingram is, and as good as I think, Utah is going to be next year, which is a lot better than what people anticipate, I would much rather go with the higher upside goalie in this situation. It's round 11. You're punting a goalie to begin with. I want a guy that could end up being a league winner. I don't know if that's Connor Ingram, whereas we've seen Philip Gustafsson do it before. So that's, again, another element to my justification for Gustafsson. Yeah. But I do agree Utah got a lot better. I think they're going to be sneaky good. And I like, if you can grab an Ingram Vejmelka pair in like a 0G goalie strategy where you just get like Mike loves to do this kind of like one team goalie strat where if he gets an elite player, he'll oftentimes pick the backup with like his last pick or towards the later rounds just to secure all those wins for that team. Yep. Which I think is a good strategy. I would much rather, if I'm punting, give me the guy that's got the most upside. Yeah, and also with Gustafsson, you're getting the rate stats probably a lot better than Ingram, right? Like I would say consistent, even if he doesn't get all the starts, I think
Gus is probably better at those rate stats. So yeah, it's an interesting conversation there. I think you're fine with either one, really. All right, now you know what, our team is set. We're just taking swings at this point. We're in the sleeper rounds, buddy. It's round 13, pick 156, and two of the hottest rookies you've ever seen are still available out there. Matvei Michkov and Macklin Celebrini. And you want to take a ride. You want to see what one of these young bucks are going to get up to. So who are you picking there out of those two studs?
So I actually recently did a rookie video on YouTube. If you guys want to go check that out, I discussed both these players because they both, in my opinion, have some upside. I think it depends on what you think is going to happen with Michkov in terms of his deployment. I know a lot of people are going to be scared that he's going into a John Tortorella system. We've seen him absolutely like crush people's time on ice that are significantly good at hockey, aka Owen Tippett, the GOAT. Please let that guy play 18
buddy,
minutes.
I'm so with you. I love that. I'm with you on Tippett, man. Please, just the Tippett, just for a second. Come on, help us out.
I think they're both incredibly talented players. Celebrini has showed at every single level that he's able to play as an underager and be dominant. I think people are going to be genuinely shocked at how good of a season Matvei Michkov has. I think he has Bedard level talent. I think he's going to establish himself as an elite player right away in this league. Your jaw is going to drop based off of seeing this guy handle the puck and deke around some players. Like, he is a legitimate potential generational type player. I don't want to say he's generational just yet, just because I haven't seen him at an NHL level, and we've seen Bedard at an NHL level, and that guy is ridiculous. Yeah, I think Michkov has more upside, but on the other hand, I think Celebrini is going to have more opportunity. I think him making the decision that he wants to come to the NHL, the Sharks are going to give him the Bedard treatment. They're going to put that guy as their first-line center. They're going to play him 20 minutes a night. He's competent enough as a two-way player that it's not going to burn them. Not that San Jose is trying to win hockey games by any means, but it's not going to discourage him. There is also a possibility, and I mentioned this in my video, that he's going to get a very good line mate in Tyler Toffoli, who's an experienced vet. He scored 30 goals historically. And you could also have a situation where he gets Will Smith on his wing as well. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, you're looking at two incredibly talented players. In Will Smith is just an elite playmaker, shown in every facet that he's, again, a super fast, high-octane player that can produce at every level that he's gone at. And then you're playing him with Celebrini, and that top line actually becomes very scary offensively. I don't know how well they're going to do defensively, especially when they're hemmed in their own end. And again, these are rookies, so I like to err on the side of caution a lot of the time. But I think overall, the Michkov situation is different than what we've seen with every other prospect in the Philadelphia camp. They've gone to extensive ends to make sure this guy gets over and touches Philadelphia Flyers ice for them. Danny Briere is going and picking this guy up from the airport himself.
Yep.
They're going out of their way to make sure that this guy is given the red carpet treatment. I would be shocked if come December we see Matvei Michkov getting around like 15, 16 minutes time on ice. I think he's a lock for the top six. I think they're going to play him accordingly. He's going to get every single power play minute possible that they can give him. I think he's going to show that he is deserving of that ice time as well. Mm-hmm. And I think he's just so talented. He's such a threat. He's such an incredible talent that I would much rather have him. And I think, if it is the case that Michkov is getting like 14, 15 minutes time on ice 2 months into the season, Danny Briere is going to be bald. This guy's gonna pull his hair out. Yeah. So as much as the opportunity that Celebrini is, and I don't want to understate how talented Celebrini is as a player. I think Michkov is special. Give me Matvei Michkov.
I love it, buddy. I don't even have much to add to that. I think that you really nailed on the head there, except for the fact that I'd probably take Celebrini. But I mean,
no. Let me hear this. I'm very curious.
There's no real argument. Like, I agree with everything you said. I think the upside play is Michkov, but I am concerned about the opportunity. It's not. Okay. I'm not buying into like everything that everyone's saying. Like, oh, Torch is gonna put him, like dink him around, not give him that time on ice. Like, I think he's gonna get some opportunity, but I don't trust Tortorella. Like, I just don't. One thing that I do like about Tortorella, though, is he's a pretty damn good coach. He had the Flyers playing way above their skill level last year, right?
Yeah.
And what they were missing was an offensive talent, a finisher, right? They were horrible. They were worse than the league as finishing.
Owen Tippett.
He's the ultimate chucker, right? He does that. But, if you can get someone out there on the power play, Matvei Michkov, who has some offensive acumen and can whip the puck around, we can see these shooting percentages go up. So I definitely think that he's the better player. I think Celebrini is going to get, like you said, the Connor Bedard treatment. I think he's going to get all the minutes, all the power play. They're close. I think I have Michkov projected for 54 points, and Celebrini, we've got over 60. We got 61 points. Nate has over 60.
Interesting.
So that's where I'm at there, but it's really based on ice time, and I think there's just a lot more variance with Michkov. I think, in the dynasty, I'm taking Michkov all day because I think he's going to be the better shot and chance producer throughout his career. And that's something that I really respect and take into consideration when I'm looking at players. But for next season, I think I got to go Macklin Celebrini, but I would love to get a piece of Michkov as well. He's right wing as well, which could tip the scales on his favor a little bit too, because Macklin Celebrini center only, getting him that late. I mean, you probably got a bunch of good centers already. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, I think just one more thing to tie on to the Michkov argument is that a lot of the times when we see people produce the way they did at the KHL level, it translates a lot better to an NHL level than you would in NCAA. Obviously, there's been exceptions, like Cale Makar comes to mind, obviously. But I think given the KHL caliber and the fact that we can see, over the course of 2 seasons, he ended with 78 games, that he's around a 200 shot volume mark. And this was with one season where he had 15 minutes average time on ice and no power play time. One of the craziest things with Michkov is a lot of his production came at 5-on-5 in the KHL. They simply just did not want to give this guy power play time, or they just didn't have that kind of opportunity. I think he scored 5 or 6 power play goals over the course of 2 seasons. So I think he's going to be much closer to a point a game player than Celebrini will be. That's not to say Celebrini can't do it. But yeah, the positional thing is a good ad as well. And I'm big on guys like I think Adam Fantilli is going to be fantastic this year. We're going to see a massive breakout with him. But again, that's a center that you're taking later into your draft. And if you start your draft off going let's say you get Austin, let's say you get McKinnon, McDavid, you start to pick one. Chances are you're picking up a half decent center. You're getting Mika Zibanejad probably 3. You can get him 3 rounds earlier than this. It's you're kind of handcuffed at center already.
Yep. No, that's a really good point. Check this out, man. I've got a subscription to hockeyprospecting.com. And I've just got these guys compared here, and their comps are ridiculous. Matvei Michkov's comps. Check this out. Sidney Crosby, Jack Eichel, Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky, Connor Bedard. That's Matvei Michkov's comps, comparables. And then Celebrini, Wayne Gretzky, Connor Bedard, Sidney Crosby, Mario Lemieux, John Tavares. What?
Yeah,
these guys are going to be special players.
They're both going to be sick. They're both going to be really good. It's just next season, I think the KHL is more translatable. I think Michkov is going to wow people. I can't wait. I'm excited as I was to see Bedard last season as I am Michkov this season. Let's just put it that way.
Yep, absolutely. I love that take with the KHL there. Buddy, that's the battle. Oh, God. I mean, I'm hurt. I'm beat up, but I'm still standing. I don't know. You don't have a scratch on you. That's fine. But
I like that we kind of went against each other in some takes as well, too. I think just to gas you a little bit, you did a really good job of making these not easy decisions. Yeah. Some of these were tough, especially the goalie one. To me, that's a coin flip, but I had fun. I had a great time. It was a fun kind of discussion.
Yeah, buddy, I really appreciate your time and heading over here and giving us this content. Really appreciate that. Why don't you hit us with your socials again, and then maybe just let us know, too, what can we expect from you guys over at Fantasy Puck for this upcoming season?
Yeah, again, I think if you guys want to check out our website, we still have a couple spots available in our Fantasy Puck Patreon leagues. If you guys are interested in playing in a competitive and interactive fantasy hockey league, we have that available to you. It's a one-time sign-up. You get it for the whole year. You get a draft date, show up, boom. As for me, you can find me over at my Twitter handle at ChrisCharlton29. But find us definitely on Fantasy Puck. We definitely go more in depth in terms of player analysis and opportunity and all that good fantasy hockey content available on our Twitter at fantasy_puck. And then YouTube channel as well, Fantasy Puck, Google it. We'll be up there. Always pushing content. We're going to have a video out almost every single day for the entire month of September. Going into drafts, we're going to be live streaming probably going forward. I think the plan is to do it at least 2 to 3 times a week. Always doing mock drafts, always getting involved with our community and prepping you guys for this upcoming fantasy hockey season. So if you guys want to check us out, again, it's Fantasy Puck on all socials.
What an absolute unit. Oh, man. And I can tell why you do YouTube, because I don't know, if you're listening to this on the podcast, you need to head over to the YouTube and check out this man. He's very handsome. All right. Yeah. Beautiful mustache, 5 o'clock shadow. Damn. All right. I mean, you're getting the analysis, plus you get something to look at. So that's nice. Buddy, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for that. I wanted to say this. I didn't get an invite to that Creators League again this year. So,
hey man,
we very hurtful, Chris. But
we had a lot of internal discussions about what we wanted to do with that. Every single person wanted to be in that league. As soon as a spot opens up, I'm plugging you in there. I promise. You were the first ballot to go on. It's just we had everybody want to come back and do it again because it was so popular. And we already have 2 Apples and Genos guys, so you got to have a conversation.
You can never have enough. Let's just up the teams. We can do like a 21 teamer. Not let's just expand it. Let's do full 32 teams. Like actual. Wow. What do you think? You into this?
I think we're gonna try and keep it at 12 right now. We were exploring the option to do 14, but just because the league is so competitive, like the draft last year was crazy. Like everybody's on the same wavelength. We've got guys that are like taking defensemen at like way before they should because they know how important they are. The league's just so competitive. To make it a 14-team league, it would just make it ridiculous. We want to keep the 12. We have 2 Apples and Genos creators in there already. So if you want to get in there, you got to have an internal discussion with one of those guys.
You already got the 2 best ones, so that's fine.
I don't know about that, man. You've got some. You've been beating me up at this show today with some of your takes here.
Oh,
so
man. Oh, that's very kind of you. All right, buddy. That's enough blowing smoke. We did that. All right. We are best friends though in real life. Chris can back me up on that. He's not back. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. That's a verbal contract. Okay. Thanks, buddy. I've yammered on long enough. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Really appreciate you. We got more content on the way, so stick with us here and then get your biscuits over to Fantasy Puck as well. What are you doing? Thank you for your service, everybody. Celebrate your day. Bye for now.